everyone, a very good evening and a very warm welcome to today's session. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fine and amazingly well, taking good care of yourselves and your loved ones. बहुत स्वागत है आपका in this second session of our chapter population, where we are going to discuss about the growth and the changes in population, what leads to it, what is responsible, what are the factors, and why does it change altogether? Why is it not constant? So let's get started with today's session. With me, Ankana, your expert for social sciences at Embibe. Let me give you a quick introduction. So, bachcho, I have done my studies in the field of humanities and have an experience of teaching in the field of being associated with the field of education for more than 9 years now, where I have had the wonderful opportunity of interacting with both CBSE and ICSE students online and offline. And I specialize in social sciences as well as English, given my background of education. Hi Shubhra, good evening, welcome to the session. Hi Isha, welcome to the session. How are you? It's Isha, right? Okay, now this entire chapter is divided in the following topics. We are done with my introduction. It's important to have an introduction of the chapter as well. तो ये टॉपिक है जिनमें हमने इस पूरे चैप्टर को डिवाइड करके रखा है, विच इज योर पॉपुलेशन साइज एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, पॉपुलेशन ग्रोथ एंड चेंजेस इन द पॉपुलेशन, एंड देन यू हैव adolescent population and NPP. Now, population size and distribution is something that we did in the previous session. Hi Priyanshi, good evening. Yesterday we have already finished that. Today we are doing the second session where we are going to discuss about the growth and the changes that happens. And tomorrow we'll be discussing adolescent population and NPP, the concepts that we are going to cover today. What are the concepts that we are going to cover today? Population growth in India, population change in India, and the impact of migration on population change. How does it affect? Okay. Namanpreet, good evening. Very warm welcome. Okay, Ishal. Am I pronouncing it right? I hope I am pronouncing it right. Ishal Zehra. Welcome to the session. So guys, also please let your friends know that we are live with the second session of population. This is a chapter which has not been included in the syllabus for a while now. ठीक है, 2-3 सालों के वक्त जो था कोविड के वक्त, this was omitted from our portion, because of which you wouldn't probably find a lot of content around it. So it's important that you attend these sessions. However, this chapter is quite simple to understand, but there are certain elements which may confuse us. ओवरऑल चैप्टर काफ़ी आसान है, बट अगेन कुछ एलिमेंट्स जो है वो इम्पॉर्टेंट है, कंफ्यूज कर सकते हैं. तो आप जो सेशन अटेंड कर लोगे तो आपके लिए बहुत सही रहेगा. तो अपने दोस्तों को भी बता दो ताकि वो भी मिस ना करें. ठीक है. हाय तरुण, हाय तनुज, गुड इवनिंग. And as I said, please remember to share the video with your friends. Let them also join. While they are joining, while you guys are sharing, let me quickly have a quick recap of what we have done in the previous session. तारण कूल है. कल हमने बहुत बेसिक्स डिस्कस किया था. आपने अगर ऑलमोस्ट पूरी रिकॉर्डिंग देख ली है, मोस्ट ऑफ इट, आई थिंक इट्स गोइंग टू बी वेरी हेल्पफुल फॉर यू. रेस्ट ऑल्सो वट एवर इज लेफ्ट 1/4 ऑफ इट, डू वॉच इट. So बच्चे, सबसे पहले we have understood that why are we even studying about population? We are studying about population because in order to understand the society, the world, how various resources are being consumed, it is very important to keep this factor, which is population, in mind, because ultimately whatever is happening in and around the world is defined as per and in and around the humans, right? Humans are the biggest resource. We have done the chapter people as a resource, right? There we read about it, that there are multiple natural resources present in and around us, but the most important of it is the human resource. Human in themselves are a resource. When you educate them, when you give them and provide them a proper health care, they evolve as a resource and capitalize. ठीक है, उनकी वैल्यू बढ़ती है, वर्थ बढ़ती है, कैपिटलाइज हो जाते हैं वो. So humans in themselves are the most important resource. It is the human who identifies the natural resources as well. Nature में क्या क्या present है वो हमको कैसे पता चलता है? How do we know it will be helpful for us, right? If diamond is there, if coal is there, if petroleum is there, it is the humans who have found it, who have used their knowledge and skills and mind to develop a technology to avail it from the nature and use it in the way that we are using. So that makes humans the most important resource and the most central resource of all the other resources which are present in and around us. Okay. Apart from that, also what we have to remember, that anything that is present in the nature would be just nature, but it is the humans in whose respect we define everything. For example, an earthquake, a tsunami, destroys what? Human lives, properties, affects our life, and that is why it is a disaster. Otherwise, it would just have been a natural phenomenon. So population is very important, humans are very important, and everything in and around us is defined and centralized around the humans. So that makes it a very important key for us to study in social science for understanding of the environment. Then we went ahead and saw that India's population in 2011 was 1.210 million, which constituted somewhere around 17.5% of the world's population. However, if you look at the current census, if you look at the current changes that have happened, so now it is 1.45 billion ke around, okay, which constitutes 7.75% I think of the world's population, okay. But what we also see is that this population is not equally distributed, right? Hi Drishti, good evening, welcome to the session. This population is not equally distributed. Some places have a lot of people residing in there, some places have very less. For example, Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, Kolkata, all of these places, if you see, it's hugely populated, whereas some rural areas, some villages, your own village, my village, would not be as populated. Or if I think about some northeastern states, there the amount of people staying in Himachal is less, but amount of people staying in maybe Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, UP, Bihar, all of these areas are huge. So population is not equally distributed, it varies from place to place. Uttar Pradesh is the most populous state, despite of the fact that Rajasthan is the largest in area. So area doesn't really impact the amount of people who are staying there. It will not determine, even if the area is large, we cannot go ahead and say that more people would be staying here because the area is the largest. Rajasthan, despite of being the largest in terms of area, does not even stand in the top 5 most populated states of India. इंडिया में 5, उसके ऊपर और कई सारे स्टेट है जो ऑलमोस्ट आधी जनता के, ऑलमोस्ट 50% ऑफ पॉपुलेशन ऑफ इंडिया का घर है. दे आर होम टू ऑलमोस्ट 50% हाफ ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन ऑफ इंडिया, इंडियन पीपल. The Census of India offers comprehensive social, economic and demographic data. So what is the census is also what we understood, that the government conducts a study of the population about the various numbers. So the enumeration, the number determination that we do, right? Hi Anjali, good evening. जो हम नंबर्स डिटरमाइन करते हैं कि कहाँ पे कितने लोग हैं, कितने लोग यंग हैं, कितने लोग किस जेंडर के हैं, किस रिलीजन के हैं, पढ़े लिखे हैं, बिलो पॉवर्टी लाइन है, अबव पॉवर्टी लाइन है. All of these things what we determine falls under the census. It's a study done every decade, every 10 years to observe the changes that have happened in the population, which is conducted by the government. Normally an SSO does this survey. Okay? It tells us about the society, which means religion, gender, other social factor related stuff. Economy, who is below the poverty line, who's above the poverty line, who belongs to what segment, who's educated, not educated. And of course, the demographic data as well, how many people are staying where, what are the factors that is getting affected, right? So in 2011, India's population density was 382 per square kilometer, which means in every 1 kilometer square, on a national level, when we saw, it was 382 on average. But this was the country average. There were states like Bihar where more than 1100 people were found per kilometer square, which is huge. Same thing was with West Bengal also, which means the population density was very, very high over here. जहाँ पे कम जगहों पे ही बहुत सारे लोग रह रहे थे, तो population density बहुत ज़्यादा थी. The factors then we studied which affects the population density are the terrain, climate, soil fertility. For example, when we saw that Punjab, Haryana, Kerala, places like these are very, very highly populated, as in their density compared to a lot of other states, leaving Bihar and West Bengal, is relatively very high. So we understood the reason behind that was the soil is very fertile, the land is flat, so transportation network is easy, it's easy to form settlements over there. There are good natural resources available for the humans. There is good transportation. There is good, because of the fertility of the soil, good option of choosing occupations like agriculture and related to it. So because of all of these things, what we understood was that these are the factors which lead to it. Whereas in the mountainous regions, we saw there were also areas where not even 100 to 100 people were living in per square kilometer, like maybe the northeastern states or the mountainous hilly regions, because the terrain, the soil, the surface over there is full of, is very uneven, is very rugged. So it's difficult to form connectivity. It's difficult to access these lands. Plus there is like a lot of forest and rivers. So forming settlements over there becomes difficult, right? Hi Priyanshi, good evening. Hanji, bataiye, why do you want to excuse me? Northern Plains and Kerala, for this reason, have a higher population because of the favorable conditions, whereas places like mountainous regions or you can say hilly regions don't, right? Because it's difficult terrain. The terrain over here is difficult and rugged. Okay? So these are the reasons which affects the population, the density of the population. ठीक है मैम, हमारे बुक में कुछ टॉपिक्स रैशनलाइज्ड हैं, बट जो बैक एक्सरसाइजेस हैं न्यू बुक के, उन्हें रैशनलाइज्ड टॉपिक के, उनमें वो जो सिलेबस हटा दिया गया उनके क्वेश्चंस है, उन क्वेश्चंस को एग्जाम में इंक्लूड किया जाएगा. प्रियांशी, आइडियली नो. Questions in your exam should only come from the syllabus, only from the portion that you are studying in the chapter. But if those are more of a generalized question, then practice it. Otherwise, it should not come in your exams. Ideally, it should not. Okay, but you can check with your school how are they planning on it. That would be the best thing to do. But as per CBSE also, those questions will not come. They might have missed on removing the question. Okay. Now imagine your school. When new student joins or if some students are transferred to other schools, what happens to the number of students in your school? It naturally changes. If a new student joins, it increases. If a student leaves, it decreases, right? So it either increases total number of students or it decreases in total number of students. Now think of the entire population of a country as that of your school's population. स्कूल के नंबर की तरह पॉपुलेशन को भी देखना है, एक देश के पॉपुलेशन को भी देखना है. पीपल आर कॉन्स्टेंटली एंटरिंग एंड लीविंग द कंट्री. सो इट कुड बी इन टर्म्स ऑफ नेचुरल और फिजिकल मूवमेंट. नेचुरल मूवमेंट, व्हेन आई से people are getting born and getting added to the population of the country. People are dying, losing their lives and getting subtracted from the population of the country. There are people who are moving from other regions, other countries to our nation. Then at the same time, there are a lot of people who are moving out of our nation to other countries and settling down there. For example, my sister, she has moved to US completely. So this whole family of 3 members are not a part of the India's population anymore. They are completely settled over there, right? They have become their citizens. So like this, it keeps on changing. How? Let's find out. So first thing matters is what is the factor which affects the population. So I was telling this to you yesterday also that population is a dynamic thing. Population एक dynamic entity, एक dynamic element है, which means it keeps on changing. Sometimes it will increase, sometimes it will decrease, sometimes it will stay neutral, but it will not stay constant. That is what population is. Then what are the factors which is affecting it? उसे क्या affect कर रहा है? उसे affect करता है births, ठीक है? उसे affect करता है deaths, उसे affect करता है migration, ठीक है? Occupational structure. Occupational structure basically means occupation क्या होता है? What is the work that people are doing? ठीक है? What is the job that people are doing? And then you have a structure of it, which means you form an organization, you form a flow chart, you form a table of who is doing what job, what % of people are associated with what occupation. That is kind of the occupational structure. ठीक है? Shubhra? So that is in simplest term if you have to understand what occupational structure is. Now population growth in India, as I told you, not just India, everywhere is a dynamic phenomenon, which means it keeps changing. It is affected majorly by 3 factors. These 3 factors, guys, you have to remember. It may be asked that what are the factors which affects population? Birth, which means the number of people who are naturally born and become a part of the population. Number of people who naturally lose their lives and get removed from the population. And then migrations, which means movement of people. into or outside the nation. या तो देश में लोग आ रहे होते हैं, either people are moving to the nation, to the country and getting added, or are moving out of the country and getting subtracted. ठीक है, तो ऐसा करके population जो है वो change करते रहती है. It is the change in the number of inhabitants over a specific period, such as the last 10 years. So basically, in order to determine population, like how do we know we are the highest populated nation now? Oh, by the way, I was just reading this old version of NCERT, and I found this, that somewhere it was said that by 2045 we will overtake China's population. Guys, we have exceeded that expectation by 20 years, which I'm not sure is a good thing necessarily. Okay? So, ma'am, primary, secondary and tertiary sector are also a part of occupational structure. Yes, you can. Occupational structure can be formed in any way. Primarily, जो है हम sectors के terms में ही करते हैं. Shubhra, let me explain this. I'll get back to you when I give a quiz question. ठीक है? Because it's completely off the topic, so it will break the flow of the explanation. So population growth जब भी आप observe कर रहे हो, whenever you're trying to understand if population of any country is changing or not, how do you do it? And it is kind of changing every day. ठीक है, every day some people are taking birth, every day some people are basically जो है they are losing their lives. So all of this is changing, right? So it is a change in the numbers, in the number of people who stay in a specific area. For normally you take for last 10 years, that's why the census also is conducted every 10 years. 10 years mein on an average, what is the shift that we have that has happened? We do a study of that. Because only when we do a study of that, we understand, acha, how much resources do we have, how much resources would be required, how do we support this population, what amount of efforts and support system has to be created. All of that you need to have a clarity. So now growth jo hai, growth basically over here we mean the change in the population. Okay? This change in population can in fact be expressed in two ways. One in absolute number, second in percentage. When I say absolute number, then absolute number would be 1.3 million people have increased in the past 10 years. What is this? This is absolute number. I have exact number of, number of people added. But if I say that there has been a 12% increase in the population in the last 10 years, then what is this? I have found a percentage that has increased. So that will give you an annual growth rate, that every year what is the percentage, or maybe in 10 years what is the percentage that has happened. So when you give the exact number, it becomes absolute increase. When you do it relatively, ठीक है, relatively भी हम data निकालते हैं. Relatively data निकालने के लिए आप क्या करते हो? Relative data is basically determined in percentage. That अच्छा, there was some amount of X amount of people staying there. On the basis of that, I see what is the change that has happened, and I find out that Y% of people have increased or decreased in the population. So this is in terms of percentage. We'll dwell a little more into specifics of this. India's population has steadily increased from 361 million in 1951 to 1210 millions in 211. This is an absolute data, you guys. ठीक है, ये क्या है हमारा? ये absolute data है. 361 million से जो 1951 में था, now we have moved to 1210 million of people, which now if you go ahead in 2023 will be around 1450 million. Okay, so now we are close to 1450 million in 2023. So maybe next 1 or 2 years, this data will get updated in the NCERT. But right now, this is how every year the shift has happened. So this is clearly giving us in numbers the number of people who have added on, that we have as an add-on in the population. From 1951 to 1981, the annual population growth rate increased rapidly. So basically in these 30 years, what we observed, that population was increasing rapidly like this, right? So let's say in 1951 it was like this. 1981, you would see that there was a huge increase all of a sudden in the population. एकदम से बड़ा dive आया था. But that was till 1981. Then what happened after that? After that, we see that some kind of constant came in. थोड़ा सा जो है वो increase जो rapid हो रहा था कि maybe from 5% to 10% to 15%, we were going very rapidly. That came to a bit of a halt. वो थोड़ा सा स्थिर हो गया. ठीक है, तो रिजल्टिंग इन सब्सटैंशियल इंक्रीज इन द पॉपुलेशन. तो बिल्कुल रैपिडली लोग बढ़ रहे थे, तो जो रेट ऑफ ग्रोथ ऑफ पॉपुलेशन था, जो पॉपुलेशन था वो भी एकदम से बढ़ रहा था. बट 1981 के बाद हमने देखा है कि जो रेट है, अगेन rate is not absolute number. We'll understand that as well. Like for example, you might even feel that, ma'am, we are the largest populated country in today's date. So at that, if you look at it like that, then we probably our rate is quite high. But the thing is that when the population is very, very big, even the smallest of its relative percentage, even the smallest of a very, very slow rate of increase also counts and amounts to a big number. है ना? इसको थोड़ा मैं थोड़ी देर में समझाती हूँ. I'll explain this to you in a while. So in 1981, we saw that the rate of population growth gradually started declining, which shows that proper birth rates were there. It was not randomly explosion of population. People were planning, people were taking care of things. And it is important for every nation's development. We need to have younger generation. ठीक है, हर देश में जितना younger generation होगा उतना उस देश की growth होगी, उतना ज़्यादा future bright होता है. But at the same time, it has to be planned well. It doesn't mean that every person should end up having 10 children, 8 children, 7 children. Especially in a country like India where the resources are already limited, because land, for example, is limited. But the largest population stays over here and the 7th largest country on the basis of area. So definitely resources are limited. So even if we want to increase the younger generation, we need to plan better. We need to control the rate of growth. Growth should be happening, but at a controlled pace, not just like booming. Okay? So despite the declining growth rate, this is the point I was telling you. अभी जो मैं थोड़ी देर पहले बता रही थी कि फिर भी हम कह सकते हैं कि यार लेकिन population तो इतनी बड़ी हो गई. Population has grown so much. So our growth rate has been slow now. It has been declining. It has been slow. It is not like how it was between these 30 years. अब ये ऐसा नहीं है. But despite of that, we see a big number of people have got added into our population, and our population is only increasing. So guys, what we have to understand is, when I'm saying that the population is increasing by 2%, what do I mean? That for every 100 people, 2 people are getting added. ठीक है? Okay, cool, fine. 2% seems justified. But now that's when only, so that's the growth rate. ये percentage में हम बताते हैं ना कि 2% growth हुआ है, which means for every 100 people, 2 people have got added on. But now when you get back and see, we had 1.21 billion people back in 2011. If even 2 to 5% of growth would have happened for this number, the number it would have given us would have been super, super large. आप समझ रहे हो? जैसे कि there is a country which has a population of 10,000 नहीं 1,000 लेते हैं. I want to show it to you clearly. There is a country which has people 100 people. ठीक है? There is a country which has 1,000 people, and there is a country which has 5,000 people. ठीक है? Now both of all these three nations see that they have grown in population by 5%. ठीक है? तो हम बोलेंगे कि अरे 5% is not a very high rate of growth. The growth of rate seems fine. It is okay. It is good. ठीक है? The pace is going fine. Earlier the growth rate was maybe 12% or 20%. That was very, very high. But अभी जो है अभी कम चल रहा है. अभी 5% चल रहा है. So 5% of 100 would be what? 5. So it will just be 5, which means the population would now be 105. तो ये 100 से बढ़ के 105 लोग हो गए. 1000 पे when you apply the same thing, ठीक है, कितना हो जाएगा? My maths is not very good. 50 हो जाएगा, right? Now you see When the population was 100, with the same percentage, only 5 people increased. But when it became 1000, 50 people increased. So this population now accounts to 1050. Whereas for 5000, when you take as 5%, it will be 250 people. यहाँ पे कितना ऐड हो गया? 250 people ऐड हो गए, which means this population becomes this now. So the bigger the population, even if the growth rate is slow, for that big population, even the smallest percentage becomes a big number. छोटा population होने के मतलब बड़ा population होने की वजह से छोटे percentage में growth होने के बावजूद बहुत बड़ा change आता है, right? 3 crore people, if we assume of 150 crore, 2.42 crore of 121 crore. Correct, तरुण. तो अगर आप 2% निकालते हो 121 का, तो नेचुरली वो बहुत बड़ा नंबर आएगा. तो यही प्रॉब्लम इंडिया के साथ भी कहीं ना कहीं हो रही है. ठीक है, चलो अब आपको इस क्विज क्वेश्चन का आंसर करना है, विच इज population change is the interaction of 3 processes. What are these 3 processes? Employment, malnutrition, birth, migration, death or development. गाइज ऑर्डर में ही लगाना, क्योंकि वैसे ही आंसर सेट है. अगर आप एक सही आंसर भी करोगे बट डिफरेंट ऑर्डर में लगा दोगे तो वो गलत हो सकता है, मार्क हो जाए. Okay. So Agastya, Govind, Namanpreet, Sai Tanmay, Shubhra, Tarun, good job. Correct answer, perfect timing, wonderful. अंजलि एंड प्रियांशी ने भी सही जवाब दे दिया है. आई एम वेटिंग फॉर दृष्टि टू आंसर. द करेक्ट आंसर इज व्हाट? बर्थ, डेथ एंड माइग्रेशन. कितने लोग पैदा होते हैं, कितने लोगों की मौत होती है और कितने लोग मूव करते हैं इनटू द नेशन और आउट ऑफ द नेशन. ठीक है, ये सारे फैक्टर्स मिलके क्या करते हैं, आपको देते हैं आपका पॉपुलेशन, और जो उसको बनाता है डायनेमिक एक फेनोमेनन which makes it keep changing. Okay, now Shubhra had asked me a question, so I quickly want to take a pause. She had asked me what is occupational structure. Structure क्या होता है बच्चे? Structure is basically organizing things. So based on what kind of jobs people are doing, when you organize that in a table to do some kind of study, that is known as occupational structure. You basically create an occupational structure of a state, of a nation, to study what kind of jobs people are doing. Now this does not have a very defined terms that only these 3 parameters will be taken. यही 3 चीजों के बेसिस पे देखा जाएगा. It varies from different things: labor availability, their working conditions, the amount of money being paid, what are the certain laws, what are the skills, what are the sectors they are working in. So occupational structure, the pattern that you create can be based on anything. It depends what parameters you are studying. But the point is, whatever parameter you take, the sectors people are working in, the skills that they require, labor conditions, the laws, एंड लेट्स से एम्प्लॉयमेंट लेवल, ये सब देख करके एक मैंने पैटर्न बनाया, वो भी ऑक्यूपेशनल स्ट्रक्चर है. कोई 2 डिफरेंट पैरामीटर लेकर के मैंने कुछ एक स्ट्रक्चर बनाया, टेबल बनाया, स्टडी किया, वो भी ऑक्यूपेशनल स्ट्रक्चर है. ठीक है शुभ्रा, इज इट क्लियर टू यू नाउ? ओके, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. The rate of growth of the population started declining from 1981 due to the decrease in what rate? What is that rate which stopped increasing, which led to a decline in the increase of the population? Population एकदम से बढ़ना बंद हो जाती है 1981 में. ये हमें क्या समझाता है कि किस चीज में जो है एक डिक्लाइन आया था, एक डिक्रीज आया था, which affected the increment of population also, जिसकी वजह से population ने भी बढ़ना एकदम से छोड़ दिया. Guys, just 5 more seconds. It's a pretty simple question. The rate of growth of the population started declining from 1981 due to the increase in what rate? Sorry, due to the decrease in what rate? Okay, and let's look at your answers. I think everyone has answered, which is fabulous. अगस्त्या गोविंद नमनप्रीत, परफेक्ट आंसर, एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट टाइम, ठीक है, गुड जॉब। अंजलि, प्रियांशी, साई तान्मय, शुभ्रा, तरुण ने भी सही जवाब दिया है। बर्थ रेट कम हो गई, अब बच्चे कम पैदा हो रहे हैं तो पॉपुलेशन एकदम से नहीं बढ़ेगी, क्योंकि एडिशन नहीं हो रहा है उतना ज्यादा, और माइग्रेशन से इतना ज्यादा इंडिया में लोग माइग्रेट करते भी नहीं है, बट इन जनरल दैट्स द ऑब्जर्वेशन, राइट? ओके, now if you talk about the population change in India, the main processes which takes to it is birth rate, death rate and migration, which we have already discussed. It's not just India, everywhere, ठीक है? तो अब अगर इंडिया की पॉपुलेशन चेंज को ऑब्जर्व करते हैं बच्चा, तो बर्थ रेट क्या है? बर्थ रेट इज बेसिकली, अगेन रेट व्हेन यू आर डिफाइनिंग, रेट का मतलब ये होता है कि इन रिलेशन टू 100 पीपल, इन रिलेशन टू 1000 पीपल, हाउ मेनी पीपल वर बॉर्न? On every 100 people, on every 1000 people, how many people were born? Rate वैसे ही define होता है ना, some unit over some unit. So it will be how many people born over how many people are alive. ठीक है, so it will be births over already alive people. So this will give you a certain rate. ये आपको एक certain तरीके का rate देगा. Rate एक तरीके से speed होती है, if you have to understand. So speed, how do we measure? We say certain meter in certain seconds or certain kilometer in certain hours. That gives you the rate. Similarly, birth rate will give you number of people, number of kids born on the already alive population. So birth rate is the number of live births. Also, live births, we are saying a lot of time, sadly enough, still children are also born, or people or children are not able to survive after birth. So we are considering children who were born and stayed alive, ठीक है, per 1000 person. So let's say if 120 children were born, then on every 1000 person, ठीक है, 120 बहुत ज़्यादा लग रहा है यार, ये देख के मुझे खुद ही अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है, उसको थोड़ा सा 20 कर देते हैं, ठीक है. So that would be our birth rate, 20 on 1000. So 20 children were born and you can take it out in percentage also. अब इसको परसेंटेज में भी निकाल सकते हो, ठीक है. सो लाइव बर्थ्स पर 1000 पर्सन इन अ ईयर, एंड इट हैज बीन कंसिस्टेंटली हायर देन डेथ रेट्स इन इंडिया. फॉर पॉपुलेशन टू इंक्रीज, इट्स अ सिंपल मैथ. फॉर population to increase, the math is simple, that the birth rate has to be higher than the death rate, which means number of people being added in the population is higher than people moving out of the population. This has to be low. Only then the difference will be positive. और पॉजिटिव होगा तभी तो इंक्रीज आएगा, ठीक है. जहां पे बर्थ रेट इज लोअर एंड डेथ रेट इज हायर, और द नंबर ऑफ पीपल मूविंग आउट ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन इज मोर देन द नंबर ऑफ पीपल कमिंग इनटू पॉपुलेशन, वहां पे पॉपुलेशन में आप डिक्लाइन देखोगे. दैट इज वेयर यू विल सी अ डिक्लाइन इन द पॉपुलेशन, लाइक जापान काइंड ऑफ इज एक्सपीरियंसिंग दैट, ठीक है. सो बर्थ रेट इज नंबर ऑफ लाइव बर्थ्स every 1000 alive people in a year, in a specific period of time, ठीक है. In India, the birth rate has consistently been higher than the death rate. That is how the population has constantly been increasing. Similarly, like the birth rate, the death rate is also determined number of deaths per 1000 people, ठीक है. So let's say 25 people lost their lives on every 1000 people, then that is your death rate. But again, for that to be higher, the number will always be higher, maybe like 120 for example. So you can see the difference, that if 25 people lost their lives, 120 got added. So 120 minus 25, we see that overall 95 people increased. और वहीं पे अगर मान लो 20 people were born and 25 lost their lives, then we would have seen that 5 people have decreased from the overall population. So that is how it determines that which one is greater. If death rate is greater, then population will decrease. If birth rate is greater, then population will increase. ठीक है. So we have seen that India में the death rate is slow and is only declining, which is resulting in the population growth. इस वजह से population जो है वो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता करके बढ़ती जा रही है, ठीक है. मैम इन्फेंट मोर्टालिटी रेट भी डेथ रेट में आता है. टेक्निकली यस, ठीक है, बिकॉज मतलब इट एग्जैक्टली इज नॉट, मतलब हाँ बच्चे, इन्फेंट मोर्टेलिटी रेट क्या हो गया, द डेथ रेट, हाउएवर द इंडिकेटर इन्फेंट मोर्टेलिटी रेट बेसिकली डिफाइंस is an indicator of a good or a bad health care, whether the people, whether the mothers and the children are healthy or not, whether proper healthcare services are given or not. So technically the parameter of infant mortality rate as a, I mean like that infant mortality rate as a parameter is an indicator of healthcare, कि अच्छा healthcare है कि नहीं है. But if you're talking about where will it will fall under death rate only. इन्फेंट मोर्टेलिटी रेट ये हो जाता है कि डेथ्स हुई हैं बट बच्चों की हुई हैं जो 1 साल से ज़्यादा ऊपर बड़े नहीं हो सके. तो वी आर ओनली काउंटिंग पीपल हु हैव लॉस्ट देयर लाइफ, चिल्ड्रन हु हैव लॉस्ट देयर लाइफ हु कुडंट इवन टर्न 1 year. So it is in a way a death rate only. The natural increase in population is the difference between birth rates and death rates, which we have understood. So since 1981, birth rates have also started going, declining. That is why the population is not increasing so much, resulting in the gradual decline in the rate of population. But despite of the fact that birth rate is declining, despite of the fact that so many births are not happening as it was happening in 1951 to 1981, the birth rate is still higher than the death rate in India. Now, next question, the natural increase in population is the difference between the birth rate and migration rate. Is this statement true? और इज दिस स्टेटमेंट फॉल्स? इट्स अ वेरी वेरी सिंपल स्टेटमेंट. जो हमारा इंक्रीज होता है पॉपुलेशन में वो डिफरेंस होता है बर्थ रेट और डेथ रेट के बीच का. क्या ये स्टेटमेंट ट्रू है या ये स्टेटमेंट फॉल्स है? Okay, and let's look at your responses. Guys, this statement is obviously false. Agastya, Navanpreet have answered absolutely correct. Perfect timing. Good job, you guys. Anjali, Govind, Priyanshin, and Tarun ने भी सही जवाब दे दिया है. The correct answer is false, right? Because it is the difference between the birth rate and the death rate, not the migration rate. ठीक है? चलो. अब migration समझते. What do you mean by migration? So we know that there are different kind of movements happening. There are a lot of people that are from other nations. You might have seen some Japanese students in your school or some other school of your friends, or maybe your siblings or cousins, colleges, that acha, somebody has come from Africa, somebody has come from Middle East, somebody has come from some Asian country like Japan, China. Okay, some foreign exchange program has been run. Some people have come here to study. Okay, a lot of them would settle down in India. Similarly, a lot of your relatives or your friends or somebody you know would have moved out of the country, moved to Dubai, moved to US, moved to London, wherever. ठीक है, कहीं shift हो गए हो. This movement from the borders of the nation is, in simplest word, the migration. ठीक है, पहले मेजरली माइग्रेशन जो है दो तरह की होती है. एक डोमेस्टिक माइग्रेशन होता है, एक नेशनल या इंटरनेशनल माइग्रेशन होता है ना. डोमेस्टिक मीन्स फ्रॉम वन स्टेट टू अनदर स्टेट. ठीक है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई हैव ऑल्सो माइग्रेटेड. आई बेसिकली माई पेरेंट्स स्टे इन झारखंड बट आई स्टे इन कर्नाटका. सो आई हैव मूव फ्रॉम झारखंड, आई हैव माइग्रेटेड फ्रॉम झारखंड टू बैंगलोर. आई हैव बिकम अ रेसिडेंट ऑफ कर्नाटका स्टेट नाउ. तो एक वो माइग्रेशन हो गया, दैट इज विद इन द कंट्री. अनदर माइग्रेशन हैपेंस वेयर यू मूव फ्रॉम वन कंट्री टू अनदर. ठीक है, so migration refers to the movement of people across regions and territories. It can be internal within a country, like I have moved, or it can be international, like for example my sister, she moved from India to US. So that is an international migration, but it's just that the whole region where people used to say the movement has happened. It could be between states, it could be within the state also. Somebody used to stay in a village but has moved to the city for a job. That is also migration. Wherever you are a resident of, आप जहाँ के भी रहने वाले हो, उस जगह को छोड़कर अगर आप एक दूसरी जगह शिफ्ट हो जाते हो, नॉट विद इन द सेम विलेज, सेम सिटी, सेम स्टेट, बट एक जगह से दूसरी जगह ऑल टुगेदर चले जाते हो, उसको माइग्रेशन कहते हैं. मोस्ट माइग्रेशंस वी हैव सीन फ्रॉम रूरल टू अर्बन एरियाज. तो ज्यादातर हमने इंडिया में क्या देखा है, गांव से लोग शहरों में आए. मोस्ट ऑफ द प्लेसेस दैट्स व्हाट यू हैव ऑब्जर्व. नाउ व्हाट आर द रीजंस फॉर माइग्रेशन? Better living conditions, better availability of resources, better availability of jobs, creation of job opportunities, education, healthcare. तो जहां भी आपको better opportunity दिखती है, better offers दिखते हैं, बेहतर growth दिखती है, आप उस तरफ shift कर जाते हो. So people majorly when have moved from villages to cities, that has been because in villages they were not finding jobs, they were poor, they were not earning. So they moved because of unemployment and poverty to cities to look for jobs. ज़्यादातर गांव से लोग शहर क्यों आते हैं? आपने मूवीज में देखा होगा, आपने रियल लाइफ में देखा होगा. A lot of times you might have witnessed this happening in the movies or real life as well, where you would have seen that acha somebody says that they were staying in the village and they says I'm not able to find a job over here, nothing is working out, maybe I should go to the city where this relative stays and find a job over there. वहाँ पे शायद मुझे मौका ज़्यादा मिल जाएगा. ठीक है, push and pull factor, absolutely सही तन्मय. So the push factor becomes over here, what pushes them out from where they are staying, and pull factor becomes what is attracting you, what is getting you towards it. ठीक है, so the push factor in rural areas which makes the people move out of rural areas is poverty and unemployment. There is not enough job opportunities. यार गाँव में इतना ज़्यादा जो है construction का काम, so less number of people are also there, so even running small businesses or shops, or for that matter having jobs of various nature because factories are not there, ये इतने opportunities available नहीं होते, जो city में option बढ़ जाता है. So people get pushed out of there. ठीक है, they feel like it's not working out, they repel from there. Pull factor क्या होता है cities में? Employment opportunities and better living conditions. It may not always be fulfilled by the way. हो सकता है कि कोई गांव में थोड़ा बेहतर तरीके से घर में रह रहा हो. Maybe in the village they were staying in their proper house, had proper food to eat, were staying in a comparatively better living condition. But in the city, they have to come and stay in a room where they're sharing rooms, their living condition have dropped down. ठीक है, but the idea of coming to city, what attracts them? ठीक है, तो क्या हो रहा है? Push factor क्या हो गया? क्या repel कर रहा है? What is repelling? तो ये repel करता है. ठीक है, and pull factor is क्या attract करता है? What attracts? तो city में job opportunities, better living conditions, more options, ग्रोथ, डेवलपमेंट, ये अट्रैक्ट करता है. माइग्रेशन जो है सीधा सीधा अफेक्ट करती है डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ पॉपुलेशन विद इन द नेशन. ठीक है, डेंसिटी चेंज हो जाएगी, नंबर ऑफ पीपल रिसाइडिंग इन वन प्लेस, एंड ऑल्सो चेंजेस द कॉम्पोजिशन एंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. अब कहीं पे आप देखोगे इन सिटीज विल फाइंड मोर यंगर जनरेशन स्टेइंग. व्हाई? सो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ पॉपुलेशन हैज चेंज्ड नाउ. More younger generation, more number of people because more job opportunities. Whereas people are moving back to retire in their villages or small towns because they don't have to work now. They want an easier life, less complicated life, maybe more economical life, ज़्यादा आसान, ज़्यादा शांत से जीवन चाहिए. तो जब when people move, the demography changes, है ना? Because there were, let's say, 100 people staying in a village. 20 of them moved and came to city. So now the population of the village is 80, whereas the city was 1000, has become 1020 now. So whenever people move, it impacts the population, the distribution, everything that you see, all the parameters that you see. The urban population increases from 17.29% of the total population in 1951 to 31.80 in 2011 with a significant increase in the number of million plus cities. तो हमने क्या देखा? That earlier, even like India specifically, what we have seen, but in India, urban setups that we have today were not immediately existing after we got independence. Independence के तुरंत बाद हमको वो setup नहीं मिल रहा था. Because industrialization, setting up of big malls and factories and all of that only started happening after that. When it started happening, then it started resulting in more creation of jobs. ठीक है? Right, Priyanshi, you have also migrated. We have a lot of migrated population in India in today's day, especially the working population. For jobs, people move from one place to another. I have my job over here, that's why I had to come here. Otherwise, I would have liked to stay in Ranchi, where is my home. So we have seen कि शहरों में जो population है, वो 17.29 था पहले. Now it has become 31.80%. Why is this happening? This huge chunk of difference has happened because of the jobs, coming of new opportunities. ठीक है, Rural urban migration in India has resulted in a steady increase in percentage of population living in cities and towns. Because people are constantly leaving their villages and moving to cities, that is what has made this change. ठीक है? अब एक और कॉन्सेप्ट आपको बता दूं, दिस चेंज इज नॉट जस्ट हैपनिंग विद इन द नेशन, अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल आर मूविंग आउट ऑफ द नेशन टू अ डिफरेंट नेशन एज वेल. कई सारे लोग जो हैं वो हम देख रहे हैं कि एक देश से दूसरे देश भी मूव कर रहे हैं. व्हाट इज द रीजन बिहाइंड दैट? द रीजन बिहाइंड दैट द पीपल आर मूविंग फ्रॉम वन नेशन टू अनदर नेशन इज because there are more job opportunities there. अब क्या हो रहा है इंडिया में, लोगों को लग रहा है भीड़ बहुत है, there like a lot of people staying here in India because there's like same rural area वाला कहीं ना कहीं कह सकते हो कि there's not enough opportunities, there are more number of people are not finding enough compensation कि उनको ये नहीं लग रहा है कि हाँ हम अच्छा पैसा कमा रहे हैं तो अब हम दूसरे देश मतलब अपने देश में ही रहे. So for all of these reasons people are moving. इस process को brain drain भी कहते हैं. Because the potential, the capacity that our citizens have, the smartness, the skill, the knowledge that our citizens have, when they move for job opportunities, for example, we'll take example of Satya Nadella, ठीक है, या फिर आप सुंदर पिचाई की बात कर लो, इन सबको इस process को क्या कह रहे हैं? All of these are Indians, but what is happening? They are staying in different countries. They have become the CEOs, which means they were very, very smart people, but they are working for different nation countries. डिफरेंट कंट्रीज एंड देयर कंपनीज, दूसरे देशों में दूसरे देशों की कंपनी के लिए काम कर रहे हैं. अपनी स्किल, अपने नॉलेज को, जो कि इंडिया को बिलोंग करता है, मतलब दे बिलोंग टू इंडिया, नॉट दैट देयर नॉलेज बिलोंग्स टू इंडिया. अगर वो इंडिया में होते तो इंडिया वुड हैव प्रोग्रेस्ड इवन मोर. इफ दे वुड हैव स्टेड बैक इन इंडिया, दे वुड हैव टेकन इंडिया टू अनदर लेवल, राइट? स्टेप अहेड, at least one step ahead, two step ahead, they would have made more progress happen. But maybe they did not find enough opportunities over here, or the opportunities overseas attracted them more. So the brain that they had, which could have developed India, they took that and went to another nation. इसको brain drain कहते हैं. So that is another kind of migration that we are observing happening in a great scale in today's date now. So on the same thing, next question is, the term often used to describe the skilled and educated youth leaving India for better opportunities abroad is known as what? Brain drain, brain gain, brain surplus, or none of these? Now again, very simple question. है ना? तरुण ने बिल्कुल सही जवाब दिया. Perfect timing, good job. Anjali has taken an attempt. Priyanshi and Sai Tanmay have also taken an attempt, and CBSE Hema Priya has taken an attempt. Namanpreet has answered absolutely correct. Brain drain, brain gain, brain surplus, or none of these. Guys, the correct answer is brain drain. है ना? The brain that we have in India is getting drained out. बाहर बह जा रहा है. Brain surplus means we have extra. No, we are not having extra. We can have more. Brain gain भी नहीं हो रहा है. We are not having a lot of people coming to India and from different nationalities. और none of these तो नहीं होगा because it is the brain drain. ठीक है? So summarizing what we have done, population growth in India. India's population has steadily increased with fluctuating growth rates driven by birth, deaths and migration. The difference between the death rate and the birth rate is what determines whether the population will be growing or decreasing, right? Unwanted G, good evening. Population change in India is influenced by all of these things, with declining death rates contributing to the growth of the population. Impact of migration especially from rural to urban areas has been noticed, which affects the population distribution composition in India, leading to a growing urban population. Now think about your family. All the members of your family are of the same age, or do they belong to same gender? Your grandmother might be older than your sister, right? You would be younger or older than your sister. There might be different people of different genders. This is because family is composed of people of different age groups, different genders. Now, does that work on a population as well? That we are going to understand in tomorrow's session. So guys, please make sure to go ahead, register yourself for tomorrow's session, same time, same place. ठीक है? Okay? तो ये कर लेना है आपको ज़रूर से. आपको सारे next week के listed sessions भी दिख जाएंगे tomorrow. You will be able to see what next do we start with. इस हफ्ते ही हम एक नया चैप्टर शुरू कर रहे हैं. तो आप ज़रूर से चेक कर लीजिए. And do not forget to check out the Imbibe lens and make sure that you are connected with us on the Telegram channel. So with that, I'm going to wind up the session now. Thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow we'll be finishing up population. तो मिलते हैं कल. Tomorrow we'll talk about the population composition and what is NPP. Okay, so students watching on YouTube, do not forget to like, share and subscribe. ठीक है, with this we'll actually be finishing geography, but natural wildlife जो natural wildlife वाला जो हमारा chapter है उसका map work हम discuss कर लेंगे. ठीक है. प्रियांशी नहीं बच्चे वो नहीं ले सकते क्योंकि शेड्यूल मैंने ऑलरेडी बना दिया है, बट मे बी आफ्टर द नेक्स्ट चैप्टर दैट आई हैव प्लान्ड आई फिनिश आई विल टेक दैट अप. ओके, so thank you so much. Have a great evening you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Do not forget to finish your homework that has been assigned to you, the post class activities, and till the next time we meet, have a great evening. Hasta la vista, bye bye, ciao, good night, and stay tuned and keep imbibing.
Keep imbibing. We believe in you.